Okay, we are back, and now I'm going to go ahead and try to set up some simulation logic and things like that. So one thing we can do is I want to check and see if we've actually got the start button already programmed in here. So we've got everything shut off in here, but we don't actually have a transition built yet. So that's where I'm going to start. And let's go ahead and put a direct contact. That's going to look at PLC program dot system start push button. And assuming that's happened, then we're going to go ahead and energize a coil. And let's see what the name of that transition is. It's init signal. So let's go ahead and copy that, come back here, paste it in. So we want to make that true. And if we're making that true at the end, that means we want to go ahead and assure right up here on top that that's not true. So I'm going to go ahead and put a reset coil right there, and I'm going to paste in our init signal. So if it was true when we come in here, we're going to make sure that it's not. And we're going to keep it that way right up until someone pushes the start button, and then we'll be up and out of here. So good. Now we actually have a way to turn our system on, and that's a plus. Before I start working on any simulation logic, something else that I need to do is I need to create a mode value, and I need to update that throughout these steps. So let's come in here and see if we've already got a mode. I don't remember creating one. So let's go ahead and just define it here. And that's going to be a dent. Got it? So now that we've got that mode, coming back into here, we need to set that every time we go into a different mode. And if I right click on this, you see that I actually can't create entry actions. So I'm going to have to set my offline mode pretty much everywhere else where I'm transitioning to offline. But for now, let's come over here to init, and I can go ahead and put an entry action on that. So I need an FBD because I'm using function block diagrams in this section. And let's go ahead and create a box right here, and that's going to be a move. So MOVE, and I'm going to move the value 1 because that's the mode that I'm coming into. And I'm going to move that to, let's go ahead and use an assignment, and I'm going to take PLC program dot mode. Got it. So just like that, when I'm entering into this block, I'm going to set my mode equal to 1, and I'm just going to do that one time. So I can go ahead and close out of there, and then I've got my startup, so this is going to be my mode 2, and I already have an entry action here. Well, that's my mode count, and I know I need to count how many times I come into here. Well, I also need to set my mode, so let's go ahead and access that, and we're going to make that colon equals 2 semicolon. So now we've got mode 2 being set, and now on our exit, we need to do something in here because we have 3 different options. We could either be going into operation, stability, or offline. And rather than doing that in exit, I know that if I come down here to the bottom, I know that this is only going to happen this one time, and I've already got this being set. So from right here, I can probably just go ahead and set that mode, and it'll be just as safe. So let's go ahead, and I will come in here and look for my PLC program dot mode, and I will set that equal to, if we're going into operate, that's going to be 3 semicolon. Okay, and I'm going to copy that, and what if we're going offline? Well, then I'm going to set that mode equal to 0, and then if we've got an alarm, then that's going to be our mode 4. Okay, so just like that, I've actually got this one all set up to change our mode. let's go ahead and close out of there and come down to operation. And since it was already set in the last step, we don't have to set an entry action here. So we can go ahead and jump to our transitions here and do the same thing. We've got an alarm signal and we've got an offline signal. So where are those transitions? We've got that right here. And looking at this, unfortunately, using CFC, we really don't have a good way to move that value over into mode and do that just at one time and on command. So that being the case, we're going to have to cheat a little bit, and that's okay because I gave ourselves the option to cheat once in a while whenever we need to. So we're not doing anything wrong. It's just sometimes the paradigm doesn't really work for us. So I'm going to copy this alarm signal, and on our operation I'm going to add an exit action, and I will go ahead and make that, let's make that a structured text. And here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and say if alarm signal 2 then, and we know that that's going to be PLC underscore program dot mode colon equals 4 semicolon, and then we can go ahead and say else, because we only have one more road out of here, right? Let me close out of here and double check. And yes, once we're in operation, we can only go to one of two places, either offline or alarm signal 2. So if we're not going to alarm signal 2, then that means we're going offline. So we can just go ahead and say we're either going to 4 or we're going to 0. Just that simple. And that'll only be done one time on exit. So we can go ahead and end if semicolon. And there we go. We're done with that transitional step. And then when we get to stability, we've already got some exit work going on here, and we could either be going into alarm fixed or alarm signal. So let's go ahead and jump in here, scroll down to the bottom where we've got our transitioning, and here we go. We've either got alarm fixed signal, which is going to be true, or we've got this offline signal 3 that's going to be true. So what are we doing here? Let's go ahead and put one more piece on that. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the exit routine because there's not a really clean way to put this into here. I'm just going to copy these right here so that I have the name, close out, and then I'm going to go into my exit routine. And when I get down here, this is where I update all my program hours at the end, and I'm always going to do this. I'm always going to end up in update hour meter. So let's go ahead and paste in this other stuff, and we're going to load alarm fixed signal, and then we're going to jump C to, and I'll just call that AFS. And otherwise, let's pretend that doesn't happen. Then I'm going to set my mode something different. So let's go ahead and clean some of this out. And we're going to load a value of 0, because that means we're going to have gone offline. And then I will store that into the mode. So we will store that into PLC program.mode. And we also need to put a return because we don't want to come down to AFS if this wasn't the case. But if it was the case, then we're going to go ahead and load a 3, because that means we went back into operation, and we're going to store that into mode. So let me double check that. And let's see, we're either going to go into alarm fixed, that means operation, so 3, or we're going to go into offline, which means 0. So we're going to check, and if it turns out that the alarm was fixed, then we're going to go into mode 3. Otherwise, the alarm wasn't fixed, but we're transitioning anyway, so that means we must have gone offline, and we're going to move that 0 in. Perfect. I think we've got our transitions worked out. So now everything's transitioning. We have a way to start our system, we can stop our system, and we're actually tracking that mode. And none of that is anything that I really planned on doing in this lecture. What I wanted to come in here and do was set up our simulation logic. And I'm going to go ahead and get started on that anyway. So let's add an object. And I'll go ahead and do that in instruction list just to make things hard on myself. So this will be simulation. And I spelled that right, good. So let's hit OK. I've now got a simulation routine that I'm going to need to call from main. So let's come up here to the top and invoke that. Good. So now we're going to that place. And I think I also need to create some values in here because I'm going to be changing certain values that I'm going to control, and those are kind of central values. So I need to create some rates, and these are going to be reals. Let's go ahead and create something called, we'll call it heat up, and we'll make sure that's a real. Then we're going to have a drop heat. That's also going to be a real. We need a fill rate. One more real, and then we're out of here, and that's going to be drain rate. Okay. So now we've got our 4 figures that we're going to be able to control at any time to change the reality surrounding our system and how fast its environment affects it. So let's go back into this simulation. And what are we actually going to be managing in here? We're going to be managing our temperature in signal and our level in signal. That's going to take a little bit of logic. We're going to have to be doing some math. We're going to have to run some timers, and that's going to take a little bit of setup. So what can I tell you? We've got at least one more lecture ahead of us, maybe more, because after I set up the simulation routine, I'm going to have to go back through our project spec and see if I missed anything, and if I did, go through and clean up and put that in. So good news, you've got a little more to look forward to if you like watching me program. So take a break, and when we come back, we'll jump back into this.